Chapter 1. Deposing the Empress. During the early summer, when evening falls, there will always be sudden, relentless rains. The skies were overcast, and dark clouds were suppressed the dignified atmosphere of the palace. The formerly magnificent palace hall was shrouded by the clouds, as if it was a huge cage, trapping the people inside firmly. In the large chambers, the curtains seemed old, as they were covered with a thick layer of dust. The weather originally was hot, but one actually felt a little cold inside. Clothes and jewelry were scattered all around the floor, as if some calamity had just occurred. A female was half kneeling on the ground, looking at the person in front. This female was only in her 30s, but her face was already like that of an old woman. There was a deep hostility between her brows, and her eyes were as dead as stagnant water, seemingly unable to tear like a long-dried well, but filled with a bottomless hatred. "Your ladyship, please." The eunuch beside her had a bolt of white silk in his hands, and his tone could not hide his impatience. Zaji still needed to report back to his majesty upon completion. Shen Mao's eyes landed on the eunuch. She remained silent for a long time before speaking with a hoarse voice. "Xiao Lizi, when Ben Gong promoted you at that time, you were still a dog outside Giao Gong Gong." The eunuch slightly raised his head arrogantly. "Your ladyship, the present is different from the past." "The present is different from the past," Shen Mao muttered before raising her head suddenly for a laugh. "What a good the present is different from the past. Because of one sentence, the present is different from the past. All the servants and courtiers who had previously seen her would be respectful and let her order them around. Because of this, the present is different from the past. She ended up with a meter of white silk to the end of her life. What kind of past is the past, and when did the present become the present? Did it start from when Mei Furin entered the palace, from when the crown prince was deposed, or when Princess Wan Yu died tragically on her long journey for an alliance marriage? Or was it when she came back to the palace after being in Shin hostage 5 years ago? From the past to the present, from an empress to a deposed empress, it was all because of Fu Zhiyi's one word. This entire court of officials changed their positions, and this Ming Qi reversed black and white. What good the present is different from the past. The doors of the hall cracked open, and a pair of dragon-embroidered boots stopped in front of Shen Mao. Looking up, her eyes were met with a bright yellow robe. "Seeing that you have followed Zen for 20 years, Zen will grant you an intact corpse. Thank this kindness," the emperor said. Shen Mao slowly raised her head and looked at the man that was standing tall above her. Time did not leave any imprint on his face, as he was as handsome as he was in the beginning. He was the wise sovereign and justifiably the son of heaven. He was the man that she had foolishly loved for 20 years, and the husband that she had helped in humble circumstances over the years. Now he said to her, "Zen will grant you an intact corpse. Thank this kindness." "Why?" Shen Mao asked with difficulty. He did not reply. "Why the need to eliminate the entire Shen family?" she asked. Prince Ding Fu Zhiyi was one of the 9 sons of the late emperor. Each of the 9 sons had their own merits, but the crown prince was sickly, and the emperor was not willing to alter the title of the crown prince. Thus the princess took the turmoil as an opportunity. She had long fallen for Prince Ding's peerless talent, and regardless of her family's persuasion, she finally got what she wanted, but also firmly tied the entire Shen family together with Prince Ding. Because of that, she dedicated herself to assisting Prince Ding, changing from a pampered daughter who did not know anything to a prince consort who could participate in court, come up with plans, give advice, and also stabilize the country. On the day that Fu Zhiyi ascended the throne, he established her as the empress, the mother to the world. She thought that she was the grandest empress. When the prince's rebellion was quelled, the Zhao Nu attacked, putting the neighboring countries at risk. In order to borrow troops, Shen Mao voluntarily went to the Xin country as a hostage. When she left, her children were not even a full month. But Fu Zhiyi had said, "Zen will personally bring you back." 5 years later, she finally returned back to Ming Qi, but there was the addition of a beautiful and talented Mei Furin in the inner palace. Mei Fern was an official's daughter that Fu Zhiyi had met during his expedition to the east. He liked her intelligence and sensibility, and thus brought her back to the palace. Mei Fern gave birth to Prince Fu Chen, who was much favored. Conversely, Shen Mao's son, the Crown Prince Fu Ming, was not favored at all. Fu Zhiyi once said in the presence of the entire court, "Fu Ming's character is too soft. Fu Cheng is still one who resembles me the most." His words clearly indicated his intention to change the title of the Crown Prince. As Mei Fern made Shen Mao feel a sense of crisis, they fought in the palace for 10 years. Mei Fern had repeatedly gotten the upper hand, to the point that she even urged Fu Zhiyi to marry her daughter, Princess Wan Yu, to the Zhang Nu as a marriage alliance. The Zhang Nu were very aggressive, and Princess Wan Yu was immediately cremated after dying from an illness on the marriage journey. Everyone knew the matter was strange, but as a mother, Shen Mao had no alternatives. At the end, she had walked to where she was. Fu Zhiyi's one decree of the Shen family revolted. The crown prince was deposed, and he had committed suicide to atone for his offenses. She as an empress would also be deposed, and 3 meters of white silk bestowed. She only wanted to ask one question. Why? Shen Mao reasoned. Fu Zhiyi, do you have no conscience? You and I have been husband and wife for more than 20 years, and I have had not done anything to let you down. When you first ascended to the throne, it was my Shen family that helped you. When you went into battle and the Zhang Nu came to invade, I was the one who helped you write the letter of surrender. When you wanted to draw the high-ranking officials to your side, it was me who got on my knees to beg them to assist. I went to Xin country as a hostage and suffered torture and pain, and how did you respond? When Mei Fern suggested a marriage for Wan Yu, you drafted the imperial decree. Wan Yu was only 16 when she died. The entire court was aware that you favored Fu Chen, while you neglected Fu Ming, and now you exterminate my entire clan. Now that death is near at hand, I will ask you one question. Why? Shen Mao, Fu Zhiyi frowned, but there was not the slightest change in expression, as if he was a cold statue. When Imperial Father was around, he had already wanted to deal with several big families. Shen family had accomplishments that could cover the masters, so they would not remain for long. It was Zen who persuaded Imperial Father. Zen let the Shen family survive for 20 years. This is already the biggest bestowment to the Shen family. Already the biggest bestowment to the Shen family? Shen Mao's entire body shook. These days she had cried so much that her tears no longer flowed. She faced Fu Zhiyi and said slowly, "Why keep the Shen family? It was not because of your kindness and not because of your bestowment. You only wanted to make use of the Shen family's military power to fight off with your D brothers. After the cunning hare dies, the hounds are boiled. Now that the country is settled, you destroyed the bridge after crossing the river. Fu Zhiyi, you are so heartless." "Shen Mao," Fu Zhiyi shouted angrily, as if stabbed in a sore spot. Then he coldly scoffed. "Make the best of it, then." Finished speaking, he walked out. Shen Mao crouched on the floor as she clenched her fists. This was the man that she had loved her entire life. She fought for his favor with Mei Fern, and only found out at the end that it was not fighting for favor. This man's heart had never been hers at all. All the words of love were simply an amusing play, a big joke. She spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. "Older sister, what is this? You look awful," a sweet voice sounded. The female wore a light yellow robe with a hibiscus sewn in the front over the willow waist, like a fairy from the heavens. Her actions were very graceful, and she was moving as she approached. This was Mei Fern, who had been winning the hand and fought with Shen Mao for her entire life in the palace. Behind Mei Fern, there stood 2 women dressed in the palace's robes. Shen Mao was surprised for a moment. Shen Qing, Shen Yu. This was the second and third household, second uncles and third uncles' daughters, her 2 older Tang's sisters. Why were they in the palace? His Majesty summoned us sisters into the palace. Shen Yu covered her lips with a smile. Fifth younger sister need not be shocked. Previously, fifth younger sister loved to help us matchmake. Now it will no longer be needed. His Majesty treats his sisters very well. You... Shen Mao's heart was like overturning seas and rivers as, with lightning and speed, she seemed to have understood something that she'd never considered before. Her voice sounded incredulous as she said, You both have been delaying your marriage all for this day." That is exactly the way it is. Shen Qing took a step forward. At the beginning, His Majesty had reached an agreement with my father and third uncle. As long as they were able to make you marry, His Majesty, in time, us sisters would have the same place to go. In the beginning, when Shen Mao was able to marry Fu Zhiyi, the second and third households had also put in a lot of effort. Thinking back now, when she first fell in love with Fu Zhiyi, it was the second and third aunt who kept mentioning that Prince Ding was a talented youth, which made her feelings sprout. So it was actually an agreement that was set up much earlier? So it was actually the second and third household that had hidden their evil hearts and waited for everything to occur today? Shen Qing was not afraid that Shen Mao did not understand and continued. His Majesty is so capable and handsome, and we sisters have long admired him. Unfortunately, only first uncle had power in his hands and could force fifth younger sister to climb up first. Fifth younger sister has lived a fortunate life for many years before. Now our hour has come. Shen Qing! Shen Mao suddenly straightened up and voiced out. His Majesty seized the entire Shen family, but let both of you enter the palace. How are the second and third households safe and sound? Of course the second and third households would be safe and sound. Shen Yu covered her mouth as she laughed. Because we have done a great service. The evidence of eldest uncle's rebellion was presented by our household, so as to place righteousness before family. Fifth younger sister, in return, His Majesty bestowed high-ranking titles to our two households. Shen Mao looked at her own two Tangjis, which means female cousin, in shock, and said, Are you all crazy? When the nest overturns, will any eggs remain intact? The Shen family is one of the big families. Fu Zhiyi wanted to deal with the Shen family, but you all actually framed your own family members. Family members? Fifth younger sister, we do not acknowledge the first household as our own family. Shen Qing laughed coldly. Moreover, you have enjoyed too much already. Now that the crown princess died, and the princess is no longer here, the Shen family is destroyed. You should leave earlier for the underworld and reunite with them. Mei Furen leisurely came forward and smiled brightly. Older sister, the country is stabilized. You should retire. In the end, after fighting for 10 years, Shen Mao lost too tragically, and her life was now in shambles. Lost till her clan had perished, and she needed to mourn for her children. Lost till she became a laughingstock to the world. Her daughter who had met with a violent death, the crown prince who was disposed, and the Shen family who had sacrificed themselves for the country, not one of them was lucky enough to escape. In one dynasty, everything was overturned. She bitterly stated, Ben Gong will not die after all. One is still a consort. Chen Gonggong, start now. Mei Furen gave a look to the eunuch. The plump eunuch immediately took a few steps forward and used one hand to tightly grasp Shen Mao's neck, while he used the other hand to wrap the white silk around it. With a forceful pull, the white silk made a crisp sound against bone as it tore through the flesh. The female struggling on the floor stared up with large eyes, laying a poisonous vow in her heart. Her son, her daughter, her parents, brothers, sisters, servants, everyone in her Shen family was harmed. Fu Zhiyi, Mei Furen, Shen Qing, Shen Yu, all the people who had harmed her and harmed her loved ones. If there was an afterlife, a debt of blood must be paid in blood. It's the time to mourn as everything between you and me is dead.